Lord God, be my heart and my spirit, worthy of all your holy gospel and Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. As soon as Jesus and his disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sunset, they brought to Jesus all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And Jesus went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord. Well, friends, it is very clear from the first reading today that Job is not having a great day. Job is feeling abandoned by God, maybe even tossed aside, forgotten by the God that he had served so faithfully. He cries out in lament to God about all the many misfortunes that he's experiencing. He's complaining about it, and he doesn't see any end in sight either. Well, maybe you felt like that at some point in your life. In fact, maybe you feel like that here this morning. There are times when venting our frustrations, our sadness, and our anger to loved ones can be healthy, absolutely. But sometimes we don't choose the healthy ways of dealing with it. The challenge with complaining is that it often turns into a pity party. We get down on ourselves, and we sometimes believe that the whole world is just caving in all around us, that there's no hope, that all is lost. In our moments of defeat, sadness, and darkness, we do not need to resort to despair. In the gospel, we see a Christ that suffers with those who suffer, and he offers healing and hope. Jesus is with us even in our smallest complaint, and he promises resurrection and life. Jesus wants to heal those complaints, those hurts, and those frustrations. But we need to be willing to approach him and to seek out that healing. We need to go with Christ to that deserted place to pray and to step back from the world and the craziness and the walls that seem to be caving in all around us in order to seek some peace. It is in this prayer that we find healing and hope. Young people today have a lot of pressures on them. I see that from visiting school and talking to many parents. Lots of pressures. Life is complicated. And I think to an extent we all face a lot of pressures, right? Especially post-pandemic. Things are different. Things are very different. But this is particularly true of young people in elementary school, most through their teenage years, and even beyond that, right? Lots of pressures. You want to look good to others. What you wear, what you say, the car you ride in, whatever age, we all want to put our best foot forward for other people. Show the good side of you. And it plays out in different ways at different ages, but it's all true of us. And it lasts our whole life long. It's natural enough, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to put your best foot forward. We want others to see us as good company, enjoyable to be with. We want clothes that look good on us. We want others to see our strengths, the gleam of health and the glow of talent. We want others to know that we are good at golf or bowling or good at something, anything. We want others to think of us as bright and intelligent and clever. But we all know that there is another side to us. There's a darker side, one that we don't want other people to see. We have weaknesses, and some of those weaknesses might even be embarrassing. We've got some deep down fears. Maybe we're not as courageous as we look. Despite our apparent self-confidence and our resourcefulness, there are plenty of frail parts to our lives. And we've made some mistakes along the way, too. We have some bad memories, and there's some shame in every life. That's the part of ourselves that we do not want anyone to know. In today's gospel, Jesus is in a small town up north at the very beginning of his public life. And what do we see him doing? We see him doing something he does an awful lot of. We see him enter Simon Peter's house, and he's standing by Simon Peter's mother-in-law, who is in bed with a fever, and with a touch, he heals her. And then she gets up and begins to serve. But with a touch, he heals. Jesus is as close as your mother-in-law's sickbed. He enters your home, and he reaches out his hand to heal you and to lift you up and all who are experiencing illness. And I'm talking any kind of illness. Physical, emotional, mental, psychological, you name it. Wherever that healing needs to happen, he's that close. He comes to you. He wants to come to you. Now the crowds gathering at the door, to them, he extends his healing hand also. And then when he's told that more people want to see him, he replies, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he replies, "Bring it on. That's what I came for. That's what I'm here for." And in this episode of the gospel, Jesus is teaching us something very important, because he teaches us what God is like, right? He's putting his preaching into action. By reaching out to the sick, Jesus is teaching us that God reaches out kindly, gently, and generously to the parts of me that need healing, to the parts of me that are sick and not well. These are the places within me and you that are frail, that we're not proud of, that we don't want anybody to know. Those are the places that Jesus wants to care for, that he wants to heal. Those are the places where Jesus wants to be with you. Those are the places where Jesus is especially loving you. Right? Jesus did not go from town to town saying, "Bring me your best and your brightest." He went from town to town reaching out to the sick and to sinners. He went from town to town preaching the good news of a God that knows we are not perfect. We're not. We might think we are. We might use a couple of filters to show that we are. But we're not, and God knows that. Right? He knows that there is a dark side to our lives. He knows that we're weak. And he knows that we have bad memories and that we're sinful. And that God, who knows all of that, wants to be in those parts of our lives. That's where he wants to be. He's not afraid to roll up his sleeves and get where it's messy. We, on the other hand, love to put up walls and barriers and protect that part, those dark parts, those parts that we're ashamed of, that we're not thrilled about, that we don't want anybody to know about, right? We do a darn good job of hiding that. Okay? We don't want anybody to know. In fact, we don't even want God to know. God, just stay away from this little part of me. But that's exactly the part that he wants to heal. And that's exactly the part he wants to work on. Jesus was very often criticized for hanging around the people he hung around with. But do you remember his response? At one point, he says this, "The healthy do not need a doctor, but the sick do. I came for sinners." We all know that Jesus went around curing the sick. But we can very easily forget why he did that. He did it to teach us that he came to be with us in those parts of our lives where we do not feel so good about ourselves. He came to say not simply, "I love you," but to say, "I love you there, right there. I love you in that part of your life that nobody sees. I love you in that part of your life that you don't love yourself in because you're ashamed. I love you right there, weaknesses and all. I love you." Now the problem is, in the world that we live in, that word love gets so often misused that we think we're unlovable. Oh, in my past, I did this. There's no way God will love me. There's no way God can forgive me. I've gone to confession. I've confessed this thing 18 times. There's no way he can forgive me. Come on. Of course he can. And he has. When you come with a contrite heart and you offer those things to him, he forgives. And even if no one loves, he loves. The good parts of you and the not so good parts of you. So we have to allow ourselves to be loved. And we have to allow ourselves to experience the healing, whatever it is, that he wants to give. Okay? We have to allow ourselves. We have to open the door and give him permission to heal what needs to be healed, so that we can live the life we're called to live. He loves you in those deep, dark places when you feel like the world is caving in around you. He loves you. He's madly in love with you. If you get a chance today, or sometime over the course of this week, spend a little bit of private time with the Lord talking about that part of you. You know it. But talk to him about it in prayer. Present it to him. Offer it to him. And allow yourself to experience his healing and his love and his strengthening touch. And then experience firsthand why we call the story of our salvation, this encounter with Jesus Christ, the good news. Okay? When you open yourself up and allow him in and let him work on you, then you can experience the good news. And that good news is for everyone.